Good morning and welcome to another online Awaken sermon. Today, we're going to do a part 6 of what makes us human. Originally, I had planned to end the conversation about being human at week 5. Even yesterday, I told people, okay, we're moving on to a new conversation. But then I started flipping through this file that I have on my computer. So I keep this file where I collect stories, ideas, thoughts, anything that I come across that I find interesting, anything that moves me in any particular way. I file it. I take a picture, I write it down, I cut it from the website that I found it on. If it's a quote, I actually have a running list of quotes that I find to be really interesting and inspiring. So I was flipping through that file as I normally do, just to see what's in there. Things that I've put there a couple years back and I've forgotten that they're there. So routinely I'll look through just to see, all right, what's here? Does anything strike my attention? And I came across this one file that I put there a couple years ago now. And I've been thinking about this story on and off for the past few years. Always wondering, okay, where's the perfect time to talk about this? What would be the perfect opportunity to talk about this idea? Because when I came across this story initially, it really moved me in a deep, deep way. So much that I still routinely think of this story, even without going through the files on my computer. And when I thought about the story, when I read through it again and thought about it, I realized this would be the perfect ending to this What Makes Us Human conversation, which is what you have today, week 6. So that's what we'll do. We're going to talk about what makes us human one final time, I think, but I'm sure the conversation will come up again at some point in the future. And then next week, if you've been wondering when will Awaken begin to meet in person again, when will we have another live experience? We've been doing a couple of smaller groups over the past couple of weeks in Heiko and Romy's backyard. This upcoming week, Sunday, June the 28th, we are going to try an outdoor service. Now, this is all weather permitting, and there's going to be a whole bunch of details and different things that we're going to have to put in place in order to keep everyone safe. So if you are interested in attending that upcoming service a week from today, there will be more information provided in the newsletter that comes out tomorrow. If you do not receive the newsletter, you're interested to hear what this is all about, shoot me an email, info@awakenwestchester.com. And if you're not ready to come out yet, or maybe you're tuning in from somewhere far, far away, no worries, because we will still be posting our service online next week as well. And next week, the 28th, it's going to be an experiment, so this will not be an every week thing for right now. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to see how many kinks there are. We'll see what kind of a response we get, and from there, we'll kind of decide what the next steps for Awaken will be in the midst of this time of chaos. And I have a special message next week about chaos and about this current climate that we find ourselves swimming in. So that's next week. Stay tuned for that one, and I hope to see you next Sunday morning. But today, we have a sermon about what makes us human. And what I want to talk about here for week 6 is I want to talk about choice. I want to talk about having to choose between multiple paths in life. Because at the heart of being human, I feel like I've said that a lot, but one of the things that is right at the center of this human journey is the free will, the freedom that we have to choose our path in life. And inevitably, when you choose one path, well, you're saying no to a whole bunch of other paths. So let me tell you when I first came across this idea that I'm talking about this morning. A couple years ago, I saw a movie, maybe many of you did as well, called La La Land. Absolutely love the movie. Love the movie. It's up there with top movies of all time. What I loved about this movie, besides the fact that Ryan Gosling was in it, was the ending of La La Land. Now, hear me out, because some of you hear that and your initial reaction is, the ending? I hated the ending. That's what made me actually hate the entire movie. Yeah, when I left the theater after having seen that movie, it was as if I had had the wind knocked out of me. You ever get punched in the gut and you have to catch your breath? You have to pause for a minute because the wind was knocked out of you. That's how it felt when I left La La Land, because the ending, if you've seen this movie, and I'm not going to fully ruin the movie for you in case you haven't seen it yet, but it has been long enough, so totally fair for me to talk about the ending of La La Land. But if you've seen the movie and you've experienced the ending, maybe you had a similar response, because it was gut-wrenching. The end of it. It was beautiful and tragic all at the same time, because you've entered a story 2 hours prior to the ending, and you've been led on this journey. And as the audience, because we've watched many Hollywood movies, we have a general idea of where the movie's going. We are used to happy endings where everything is neatly tied together. But the ending of La La Land, it doesn't tie it all together neatly. It doesn't end the way we want it to end, the way we expect it to end. It doesn't end the way that we typically want our lives to work out, where everything has been put back into the box in a nice, tidy manner. That's not the ending of La La Land. And it's for that reason that many people despised, is that too strong of a word? Disliked the ending of La La Land. I ran across a thread on Reddit where one person was talking about how much they hated the ending of La La Land. And here's one comment to that way of viewing the ending. This person comments, spot on, totally agreeing with what he has just said about the ending. That's what makes it so real and draws you into the story. It's that simple fact that such is life. We may want to have this happy ending, but that's just not reality all the time. Believe me, I hated the ending for that same reason. But the hate I have for the ending actually makes me appreciate this movie so much more. You learn to appreciate and really love the disparity of risks you take in life. And that is what makes life worth living. The risks, my friend, to feel both heartache and joy. And here, that's what makes us human. That person could have written this sermon. That's what makes us human. The risks. Feeling heartache and joy. At the end of La La Land, it's all packaged in there together. Because there was a choice that the main characters had to make. And when they chose one path, they ended up denying all the other paths. There's a quote I came across a few years ago. The quote is, "Before you say yes, you have to say no." How simple, yet so profound. Before you say yes, you have to say no. Before you can fully commit to something, before you can walk down one path and fully invest yourself in that path, you have to say no to a whole host of other paths. A few examples. When you go out to dinner, when you go out for a meal, and you're handed the menu, what you're looking at are a whole bunch of different choices. There's a whole bunch of different options. And if you say, I'm going to order the chicken, you're saying no to the steak dinner. You're saying no to the salad. You're saying no to the seafood dish. You're saying no to all the other options. You're saying, yes, give me this meal. Now, what about vacations? If you choose to go to Florence on a vacation, you're saying no to a Greek islands vacation. Or how about this one? You have a few options at the end of the evening. Maybe it's a Friday evening, the end of a long week of work. You can, A, choose to stay in, maybe watch some Netflix, catch up on a movie that just was put out on demand. You could stay in and read, or you could choose to go out and spend the Friday evening with friends. Saying yes to staying in means no to all these other options and choices that are being presented to you. When you say yes, before you say yes, you have to say no to all the other opportunities, choices, and paths that are in front of you. Now, I know in the culture we live in a FOMO culture, fear of missing out. We don't like to hear that. We don't like to hear that we can only choose one path. We're a culture, we're a society that likes to, quote unquote, keep our options open. We don't like jumping in. We don't like fully committing. We'll wait until the last minute. If we're invited to a party, often it'll be, let me see what I can do. I'll probably make it. Maybe I'll make it. I'm not sure if I'll make it. And then you'll get a couple of texts that morning, the morning of the party, of people saying yes or no. Because after all the options have been weighed, we're then willing to say, oh yes, this would be the best choice for me. We live in a culture of FOMO. We're afraid of missing out on all the other options. So when we come across an ending like La La Land, and the reality of that ending hits us, we shrink back a bit. We initially look at that and say, oh, that's not a good ending. That's not a good story, but that's reality. Baked into every decision we make is joy about the decision, but also heartache about that which we're saying no to. It's all part of it. It's what makes us human. Now, there's this story in the Bible, which, for me, it's got to be a top 10 story in the Bible. Love this story because it beautifully illustrates what we're talking about here this morning. This story takes place in the Old Testament, in the book of 1 Kings. 1 Kings chapter 18, to be specific. Now, in chapter 18, we come across a prophet by the name of Elijah. And Elijah doesn't have such a great relationship with the king of Israel, Ahab. Let's pick up the story in verse 16. Ahab went to meet Elijah. Now remember, there's a history. They don't get along too well. Ahab particularly doesn't like Elijah. Now when Ahab saw Elijah, he said to him, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" How's that for a greeting? How would that feel if you came across someone that you have some past with, you have some history with, and that's how they greet you instead of, "Hey, how's it going? How you doing? Is that you, you troubler of Westchester?" So Elijah replies, verse 18, "I have not made trouble for Israel, but you and your father's family have." Can you see the dislike, the tension between the two of them just in these couple of verses? You have abandoned the Lord's commands and you have followed the Baals. What Elijah is saying is that you, as the leader, as the king, You were supposed to follow Yahweh. You were supposed to follow the God of Israel, the God who has rescued us, who set us free from Egypt, and who has brought us into the promised land. But instead of continuing to follow Yahweh, you have followed another God. You have followed the Baals, the god of thunder. Now summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel. This is Elijah telling Ahab. And bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. Let's do the math here. One prophet of Yahweh, of the Lord, and 450 plus 400, 850 other prophets. Elijah versus 850 other prophets. And Ahab, he doesn't like Elijah. Elijah is a very brave man, is he not? Summon everyone, all the people, let's have a showdown. This is like WWF, Monday Night Raw, right here at 1 Kings chapter 18. We're going to have a rumble. So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people, all the people of Israel, all the ones who had gathered on Mount Carmel. He's not speaking to the prophets. He's speaking to the normal, ordinary people like you and me. And here's what he says. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. This word waver, it's the Hebrew word pasak. It means to hop, it means to hesitate. It can also mean to limp or to be made lame. Here's Elijah asking the people. They've all gathered here. They know what's about to happen. They know there's going to be a showdown between Elijah and his God and all these other the 850 prophets and their gods. And Elijah calls them out. How long will you hesitate? How long will you limp around for? How long will you be made lame for? If you believe God is God, Yahweh is God, follow him. Devote your life to him. Devote your life to his ideals, to his way of being. Place your trust wholly in this God. But if you want to believe that the Baals, if you want to believe that they're the true gods of this universe, and you want to follow that God and devote your life to the Baal's way of being, then go and follow that God, but stop wavering. Stop having FOMO. Stop looking at which God did the most for you recently. Stop hopping. Stop sitting on the fence. Commit yourself to one path. Follow the path of Yahweh or follow the path of Baal. And what was the response of the people? But the people said nothing. They were paralyzed. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to respond. They didn't know which path they wanted to walk. They didn't know which path they wanted to commit themselves to. Do you see what's going on here? Elijah comes before the people. They've been wavering for who knows how long. Days, weeks, months, years. And as a result of their wavering, because they couldn't choose a path, because they couldn't commit their life to one choice, they were left powerless. And then when they were presented with this call to this make a decision, they had nothing to say. It illustrates the powerlessness that not choosing ends up causing in your life. See, this is what La La Land so beautifully illustrates. It's a truth found in this story. What it beautifully tells us is that, yes, there's loss when you make a decision, but making a decision, committing yourself to a path, it brings a sense of power, a sense of joy that overrides the heartache that path inevitably brings along. Whenever you commit yourself to one journey, the joy of walking that one path, it overrides all the other feelings and disappointments that other path will bring up. So let's look at two questions. First question: how is it that not choosing a path makes us lame? How does not choosing a path cause powerlessness within us? So I've been reading this book called The Passion Economy. And one of the examples that's found within the book is about a marketer. And early on in her marketing career, she is saying yes to every single opportunity that's being presented to her. If anyone wants her to do any work, she says yes without even analyzing or processing, asking the question whether they would be a good fit for her. She's not even asking the question whether she would be good at what they want her to do. If anyone comes and says, hey, I want you to do this, she just says, yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Which early on in her career, and as she began progressing through her career, brought this sense of being pulled in all sorts of different directions. She talks about, she was a new mother. She talks about staying up all night, whether it was from feeding or from just trying to keep her business afloat. There was no time with her family, this young family that she had, and she was losing more money than she was making. She had this sense of being pulled in every direction. She was saying yes to everything. She didn't have a clear path to walk. And as a result of not having a clear path to walk, it was bringing all sorts of frustrations. It was causing all sorts of pain. She wasn't able to fully commit to anything in life. She wasn't able to fully invest in any area of her life because she was giving little pieces of herself to all the different opportunities and paths that she was trying to walk. And for her, it wasn't until she had some outside coaching, someone who could help her narrow down that path, to give her clarity, to help her walk one particular path, that she was actually able to take control of her life again. But for the beginning, when she was saying yes to everything, it felt like she had no control. And she was left lame, limping around, trying to hop from one opportunity to the next, but not finding any joy in the work she was doing. So let's ask another question. What then does choosing one path look like? And there's a story that I heard about Picasso. Love this story. Picasso is an older man, and he's sitting in a restaurant. He's sitting in a cafe, sipping on some coffee, and just doodling on a napkin. Now, Picasso's doodles, I think it's safe to say, are quite different than the normal, ordinary doodles that we all do on napkins. Here he is, sitting in a cafe, doodling something on a napkin, finishes his coffee, he gets up, crumples the napkin, is about to throw it into the garbage can, when a woman rushes up to him and says, wait, if you're just going to throw that out, I would love to have that napkin. Here's how Picasso responds. He says, sure, $20,000. To which the woman responds, $20,000? Well, but that took you 2 minutes to do, and you were just going to throw it in the wastebasket. Picasso looks at her and he says, no, this didn't take me 2 minutes. This took me 60 years to create. 60 years. See, Picasso knew that his whole path, his whole journey, his commitment to his craft, his 60-year commitment to his craft allowed him to create a spectacular doodle in just 2 minutes. That, my friends, is the power of commitment. Committing yourself to one path for a lifetime, for 10 years, for 60 years. Think about the value that creates for yourself. Think about the joy that creates for you. Think about the value that creates for others. See, when I think about committing to one path, when I think about choosing one path, I think about the friendships that I've had, friendships that are going on 20 plus years. They're friendships that both of us haven't given up on in 20 plus years. Friendships that we've committed to through the good times as well as the hard times. The times when we had disagreements. We saw things differently and we let each other know, I don't see it that way. I think you're wrong. But we decided to stick it out because we thought this friendship, it's worth more than this disagreement that we're having right now. And so we said, let's work it out. Let's keep talking about it. I think about marriages. There's so much power in a marriage that lasts 40 years, 50 years. I mean, how often do we get to celebrate 50-year anniversaries these days? It just doesn't happen. But when you do, you see the love that couple has for each other because they've been through some stuff together. They've been through the good and the bad. They've had their setbacks, but they've said, we're going to stick this out. No matter how messy it gets, we're going to commit to each other. We made this choice 50 years ago, and by making this choice, we've said no to all these other choices. There's so much love that can be found in a marriage that's lasted that long. I think about a craft that you are continuing to develop your skills in. Committing to a craft, it takes time, it takes failure. Yeah, there's lots of failure that's mixed into choosing to commit yourself to a craft. But there's also so much joy in doing it because you realize that's the path that you were created to walk down. That's the path that will ultimately bring you the most joy in life and bring others joy as well. Yeah, see, we live in this culture of FOMO, fear of missing out. And as a result of it, too infrequently, we see people committing, fully investing themselves down one particular path in life. But I think choice, I think commitment, fully investing, it's a spiritual practice. I think it's a practice that God desires for us, maybe even more so in this day and age. We're seeing all sorts of protests right now. People who are standing up, speaking out, and saying, what has happened, what is continuing to happen isn't right. That's a choice, and it's a choice to continue walking that path, despite how many times you get knocked down, despite how many times it seems like hope is slipping away, despite how many times it seems like your voice and the collective voice of others is not being heard. Committing yourself to a cause, that's a path that takes commitment. It takes weathering storms, the storms that, yes, will come up in life. but it's a path that brings joy, because as you fully throw yourself into it, you realize, yes, this is the path that I was created to walk. See, with freedom comes risk. With freedom comes a multitude of opportunities. So for us today, what's the path in front of us that we're being invited to walk? What's the yes that we need to say yes to? And as we do so, we need to say no to all those other options. So as you evaluate the paths that are in front of you right now, my prayer for you is that you would find the one path that the Spirit of God is leading you down for this season. May you commit yourself to that path, to that relationship, to that craft, to that cause. And as you do so, may you say no to all those other paths. May you stop wavering. May you stop hopping. May you stop hesitating. And may you fully, with both feet, throw yourself into the deep end of the pool. And as you do so, may you feel a joy that is bigger than the losses that will come up when you say no to all those other paths. Will you feel a sense of power? May you feel a sense of, yes, this is where the Spirit of God is leading me. And may you find life, true life that comes as you walk that path, as you fully invest all of who you are in that one path that your feet are walking. May grace and peace be with you this week.